Sometimes you read a headline and you go, all right, this is another California headline where it should work out just fine in the end, right? This is one of those. LA considers raising, nearly doubling the minimum wage for some construction workers, possibly up to $30 to $35 an hour. An hour. Going from about $18 to $32 for some apartment construction workers. California, LA, has a massive, massive housing shortage. This should work out fine. Here we go. So what's the deal we've got going? Here it is kind of in a nutshell. Should construction workers on mid-sized Los Angeles apartment buildings, and we'll get into the specifics, earn at least $30 to $35 per hour? Here's what we got going on. Should construction workers on mid-sized LA apartment buildings earn at least $30 to $35 per hour? Los Angeles City Council is scheduled to vote today, on whether to order a study of a proposed industry-specific minimum wage. So what you've got going on is you got a whole bunch of construction workers that are, let's be honest, not legal. They're worried about getting deported. Okay. Yeah, that's a real, and if they've got some kind of criminal history, and they got something in their background, that's a legitimate concern. But what you've also got is the folks that are, these are at $18 an hour in Los Angeles. Pretty tough to make a go of that, right? Pretty tough to make a go of that. So City Council says instead of reducing costs for everybody, including this group of employees, let's not do that. Let's just go ahead and pump up their minimum wage, and we won't worry about what kind of impact it'll have on, housing, because housing's such a overrated commodity. Because when you take a minimum wage, $18 to $32, almost doubling it, and when labor is a massive, massive component of your cost to construct, that's just basically going to tell every apartment builder, every construction, somebody that's interested in developing in Los Angeles, doing anything in that area, it's just going to signal to them, don't come and do business in Los Angeles. Don't come here. We're disincentivizing, your industry in general. So City Council is typically made up of a bunch of nut jobs who like to throw out shenanigans of ideas and then just, hey, what could possibly go wrong? Right? This is one of those ideas where it's like Seattle with its numbnut City Council and a bunch of people who've never run businesses before. It's like Mom Donnie in New York City. It's like Katie Wilson here in Seattle. People with zero life experience, and they get out a book and they read a book and go, socialism is our answer. Let's just kick up those minimum wages without any thought to what that'll do to the industry. Now, I know you're going to say, well, they're going to do a study. How do those studies end up? What kind of socialist are they going to have do the study? Yeah, Karl Marx's great-great-grandnephew, probably, right? Because that's where all this stuff goes. The details. Late September, council members put forward a motion outlining a potential new minimum wage that would apply to construction workers on any housing project with 10 or more units and a height of up to 85 feet. What? Who came up with this? Well, let's quantify it in such a way that it's bigger projects, but it's not the very biggest. This is the kind of housing that Los Angeles needs. Los Angeles does not need to have further barriers to this type of housing, because you know what's going to happen? Like I said just a couple of minutes ago, the big construction companies, they're going to say, LA? Yeah, nope. Because we can make the exact same damn money over here in this community. It's just outside of LA city lines. Let's go there because we can hire people for half the cost. So why wouldn't we do that? Yeah. So LA City Council is literally just pulling out, that big Colt 45, shooting themselves in the foot. And then it'll be like a news story, like literally happened with the minimum wage for Seattle Starbucks workers, all those kind of workers. And all of a sudden, business dries up. They're closing a bunch of Starbucks. So your minimum wage went from $27 an hour to, I don't know, zero, because your Starbucks closed down. How'd that work? How'd that go for your unions? So they proposed a $32.35 per hour wage that would also come with an additional $7.65 per hour in healthcare credits. I'm not saying that these folks don't work hard. I'm not saying that they don't deserve a raise. But when the industry standard is set at this, and people are kind of making money, and then you go along and double the wages, which most folks in LA City Council have not run a business and they don't understand the cost to, put out their product. And when you have a component like that and you do that kind of thing, it just tells the construction companies and investors and developers, don't come build here in Los Angeles. Because even if you don't believe that, think about this. If you're a construction company and somebody has told you, well, it's going to cost you double to build over there in this one segment, do you want to go build there? And you're left with, well, what's the upside? Well, it's the same thing as this community over here, but it's just way more expensive. Does that signal to you that, hey, we should just go put up, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 units of housing in Los Angeles because it costs more? Does that make any sense at all? No, it doesn't. Because the Los Angeles City Council is filled with a bunch of commies, a bunch of socialists who essentially don't understand business. They care for the workers of the world unite. All right, okay, yeah. How has that worked out historically? What societies have we seen where socialism has worked, where socialism has benefited things, where socialism has made things better over a long period of time? Where is that? Where are those examples? Hey, let's just go ahead and throw it out there and see what happens. Mondami in New York City. Let's just elect him. Katie Wilson here in Seattle. Let's just elect her, and even though she has zero skills, just like Mamdani, zero skills that would enable him to run a biggest city in the United States. Let's just get a commie in there. It should be fine, right? Yeah. Shenanigans, I say. The vote. Tuesday's vote, if passed, would instruct the city's chief legislative analyst to carry out a study on setting a new residential construction minimum wage and its potential impacts. The study would not be required to use $32.35 per hour among the final recommendations. Study would need to include information that the wages workers currently need to afford housing and healthcare in LA. All right. As well as strategies the city could use to minimize any potential negative outcomes from establishing a new minimum wage for mid-sized apartment building construction. Now, what they're getting at is that, hey, our workers can't afford to live in Los Angeles. They are commuting from far away. And why is that? Why is that, Los Angeles? Why is that, California? Because you've put in layer after layer after layer after layer of nonsense, driving your costs of living through the roof. And now you want to bump up wages because you've already increased costs. Doesn't work that way. Business doesn't work that way. Business says, all right, law of substitution. If I can build it here, the same cost, or, vastly different, which one are you going to go with? Well, if it's all things are equal, you got to pick a reason, right? And if it's wildly obvious, all right, your labor cost to get this bad boy up and framed or whatever is going to be double, has a massive impact on your profit. You can't bid it out to have it make sense. You're just not going to have much housing built. And at the end of the day, what does that do? That drives your rent up because you've got less housing supply. Not that hard to figure out. Right? But, these numbnuts are just like, oh, this should be the greatest thing ever. The context. This wouldn't be the first time the LA City Council set a higher minimum wage for workers in one specific sector. Hotel and airport workers recently secured a higher minimum wage thanks to a council vote. Their pay is set to rise to $30 per hour by 2028, when the Olympics are scheduled to be held in Los Angeles. Man, we've covered that one to death. Like, what's going to happen? How are the smaller mom and pop type hotels going to be able to operate when a massive component of their overhead, literally just goes up, boop, because the city council said, well, we need to have, honest and fair wages for our workers. You're going to have folks selling off their hotels. You're going to have them, a lot of those get torn down and they put up housing, right? So, you got to work out, okay, how are we going to get more units to the market without rocking the labor force? And what you've got going on right here is basically you won't have much more development. You will not have more development, I should say. You will have less development. There's less incentive. But most of the numbnuts on the city council in Los Angeles, they don't really get that, nor do they care. They're more like, workers of the world unite. Construction workers currently earn a median wage of $18 per hour in Los Angeles and frequently face wage theft because they're illegal and they're working for unscrupulous contractors who are screwing them, basically saying, hey, I'm going to call ICE. You go away. Go away. I'm not paying you. According to the council members who introduced the minimum wage proposal, roughly half of those workers are undocumented and many lack access to health care, according to the motion. That is a different story. So you are trying to end route a solution to this problem that is just going to make it much, much worse in the short term by reducing the supply of housing over the long term, thereby skyrocketing rent. And that is how rent, after all of these one after another policy layers and layers on the construction process and layers on real estate development. And this is one of those layers. Well, why is it so expensive? And why don't we have much in the way of supply of housing? And when I say housing, I mean all types of housing. Why aren't we building enough? Well, because you're making numbnut decisions like this. You're making numbnut decisions like this. You're not allowing the free market to do what it does, which is you got supply and demand. Hey, if there aren't enough workers, then you start to increase those wages till you get to a point of equilibrium, right? But you don't have that. And in California, you have got millions of people leaving, literally millions of people. Millions of people are leaving California. They are leaving New York. They are leaving Illinois. They are leaving, what else do we have? Massachusetts. They are leaving those markets because it's gotten so expensive that the vast majority of people just literally can't afford to live there, including the segment that we're talking about here. And it's not because construction companies are screwing them. It's because the overall cost of living has risen so much that they literally can't afford to live anywhere in California. That's how this has gone. LA is facing a state housing mandate to plan for nearly 500,000 new homes by 2029, a goal the city is currently unlikely to reach. Previous research has shown that labor agreements on city-funded housing projects increased construction costs and led to fewer apartments overall. I read that one again, just for kicks, right? Previous research has shown it doesn't take an effing scientist to figure this out, or even a professor. Even a professor, if you can't do, teach, right? Previous research has shown that labor agreements on city-funded housing projects, or any funded housing projects, increased construction costs and led to fewer apartments overall. Not that hard to figure out, is it? No. And that's why you've got so much of a shortage in California in general, but in other West Coast, big cities, you got the exact same thing. You've restricted the ability to develop so hard. You've caused costs to increase by so much that at the end of the day, developers are like, we're only going to build the cherry pick stuff. We're only going to build the expensive stuff because that's all that we can make money at. This entry-level housing, not as much. Whereas in states like Texas, who's gaining migration, states like Florida, who are gaining migration, North Carolina, South Carolina, Arizona, you've got the ability to produce housing that isn't outrageously expensive. Now, have costs gone up in those states? Absolutely. Why? Because you got a whole bunch of people moving there because they want to take advantage of Republican-run, conservative-run areas that haven't done all of this numbnut socialism commie nonsense that drives your costs through the roof. And then you're like, I don't get it. There's just not any cheap housing around here. What happened? And you're like, hello, McFly. Are you in there anywhere? So this is another one of those, literally, you hate to say it. You want to see it happen. I'm at that point where I'm like, you know what? This is that 20, 25 year period in history that we have to revisit why socialism doesn't work. So I say, hey, let her rip. Let's make the minimum wage $50 an hour, like that one really harebrained, mentally challenged, I think it was Californian, senator, House representative, just literally head way up her you-know-what, right? Oh, it's got $50 an hour. And I forget what industry it was, but I mean, what an absolutely twisted concept to throw on to your constituents. We'll just see how this goes. But I am advocating, let's see how this goes. Bump it up. Not, what are we talking? 30 something? 30s? Let's bump it up to $40 an hour. That should sufficiently, damper any incentive to develop more housing in California, in LA specifically. Let's just see what happens. Let's make it $50 an hour, and we'll just, we'll see what happens. Because all those workers, they're going to be lined up for these jobs, right? They're going to be lining up left and right to build all these projects, just like all the people that work for Starbucks in Seattle are lining up to pour all those coffees. Oh, your Starbucks is closed? Huh. Weird. I didn't see that one coming. Huh. Yeah, strange. Anyway, that's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe. Do all that good stuff. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.